I already mentioned from the very beginning. So we have meetings and discussions. But how would we, either private, or governmental, or political, or diplomatic, or whatever, including data sharing, how would we have a kind of a coordinated effort and cross-sectoral coordinated effort? We still haven't got an answer for that. So that's the key.
Okay, and there are a lot of barriers. Jane.
It takes a lot to shock me, so I can't say anything shocked me. I think what this has reinforced, though, to me, is there is an absence of a centre to convene what is something that is broader than just a health issue. It's reinforced for me the fatigue problem. The truth is, more people did die in the 1918 pandemic than died in World War I and World War II combined, and yet we talk about that all the time and we don't talk about the pandemic. 25% of people in Samoa died because people were allowed off a ship. So those impacts are not talked about anymore. And then I guess the other thing that it's reinforced to me is how much more work there is to do on this issue, particularly from, if I can describe it in this way, a more ecosystem perspective. So it's not just from the health perspective, it's not just from the perspective of private industry, it's not just perspective of government, it's from the entire ecosystem.
I think this is a really technical argument, and it's a bit like, honestly, it's a bit like when's the next asteroid going to hit us? And I think people get lost in that. And if you want to take this into something that's really actionable, you have to get down to the consumer level, the person who doesn't live in West Africa waiting for Ebola, but the person who actually, like I do, lives in New Hope, Pennsylvania, and doesn't see it. Until you get to that level, then you're not going to get the traction and the actionability behind it. Like, what would I do different on Monday? It's kind of a question for people not living right now in West Africa. So I think, for me, the big aha about this is, it's not bad, but it's a technical discussion with technical people who are involved in this every day, and to the exclusion of the community, I'd say.
I'm struck by how probably this is, the broader public is unaware of just how severe this could be. That strikes me, and I would share that I think an increase of knowledge on that, which could hopefully lead to more prevention and wellness in our healthcare system rather than the acuity that we deal with, at least in the United States. More focus on prevention and wellness, and specifically primary care, oral care, which has a direct correlation with overall health, and that helps immunity system. So I'm really struck by that mostly.
I think it's very important to not be shocked. I think when we're shocked, we're not able to make decisions to do the right thing. And I think some of what we've done today is just help us think through what a really bad scenario might look like. Before an event like this, having the systems in place to coordinate more effectively is essential. In the long term, biotechnology, and as Chris said, the ability to rapidly develop a specific countermeasure is important. The requirements there are incredibly difficult. Within weeks, have something that everybody could take. I'd say in the response, it will be really important to think about what the aim of the response is and how much can actually be accomplished. I actually think in this event, given what we heard up through the first moves, the outcome was really not as bad as it might have been. And I think we need to, as we're responding to this, we need to be clear about what is achievable with the interventions that we have and not overestimate the impact we can have.
Chris?
I guess my surprise, not shock, but surprise is the presumption of competence of the system. One of the things that struck me in the earliest video was that the poll showed that 2/3, I think it was, of the population thought a vaccine would be available in 2 months. This is a population that is, at least in my state, a significant minority of people willing to question whether they should give the kids the vaccines we have today that have been around for decades, proven to be safe and effective. And yet, in the face of a crisis, 2/3 of them presume that the scientific community will come up with a vaccine within 2 months. That's dangerous, magical thinking. And we have to, get a better set of messages out about what the threat is and what could be happening. I think there's an implicit presumed competence of governments and the UN system that's probably greater than it should be as well. I think governments being clear about what they can do and what they can't do in the
Cannot.
face of an epidemic will help increase individual and community preparedness.
Yeah, don't overpromise. Sophia?
Thank you. I mean, for me, this really exposed the vulnerabilities, not around the room, but in terms of the country comparisons. And those vulnerabilities already exist in the poorer countries. And so how are we going to strengthen those capabilities, whether through the health sector or governments? And that these solutions that we've been talking, the discussion for me has been sectoral, and we need to figure out a way. I'm not saying that United Nations has the answer to all of this, but we need to figure out a way that can bring all stakeholders to the table in a situation like this to be able to bring the best solutions to
Private sector as well as government too.
Yeah.
Tim?
Great. Well, I'm convinced increasingly that simulations are stimulating, and I think they have a real value. And so I want to make sure that that gets added to the list of recommended actions. I think we have to look and complement that stimulation with a much clearer commitment to driving change in behavior in a very complex system in specific areas. And I think this is helpful, but if we lay this on the 4 reports that were produced following the West Africa crisis, if we link it into the ongoing activities of the Global Preparedness Monitoring Board, I think we would come up with an ambitious agenda, but one that gets sufficiently refined that we can begin to hold ourselves accountable to that.
Okay. This side of the table, I'm going to have to ask you to be very brief, but Latoya, go for it.
Yes, to take a look at the takeaways from our history. And we speak of the 1918 flu epidemic and Ebola. Basically look at all of the actions that were taken there, bring those together, prepare a regulatory or a protocol that you can start to work on, and try to increase communication from government to government, so we'll be able to share healthcare information, whether it's genome therapy, whatever's taking place, to try to combat the disease or virus.
Okay.
Great.
Appreciate the focus on preparedness. As we look at communities that are, let's say, vulnerable to natural disasters or crisis, I mean, we look at trying to foster that community hub, bringing together faith-based organizations, academia, government, small businesses all together. On the other end of the spectrum, we believe that the World Economic Forum is a great platform that brought together post-Ebola a great group of the WHO, the World Food Program led by Henry Schein, J&J, and we are all loosely together because, again, sustainability, keeping the interest of these institutions is always the challenge.
Yeah.
Costi?
I think, first of all, in major global corporations, you know, when you think about even the regulations there are for how many executives can get on one plane at a time, there are all these succession plans already in place. So what are the plans that the global organizations are having in place in case of such a situation like this? And then I think the thing I'm surprised about, we didn't bring this into this at all, but politics. If this is taking place from October to December 18th, 2019, with the debates going on and the presidential election coming up in about a year, I think that would play a major part in this kind of scenario.
Interesting point. Martin, quickly.
3 points. Use the time that you actually have for preparation with the best way. Set up and maintain information exchange platforms and keep the awareness. It's our responsibility to do this. Thank you.
Excellent.
For me, my learning was the risk of misinformation and disinformation. I think it requires a lot more thought and coordination across the stakeholders.
Matt?
At one point, despite the alignment around the room about the importance of some central leadership, I think the challenge in agreeing on the central leadership.
All right. Thank you all. I think summing this up as I see it, investment, planning, preparation, coordinating, prioritization, and obviously all the advanced thought and effort given to those things will hopefully mitigate the effects when the pandemic comes. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Good.
Thank you, Jean, and thanks to all of our players for these excellent suggestions. Our plan now is to consider your ideas, the results of today, and come forward with a set of recommendations and a call to action. And we hope that with your experience today, you will continue to be amazing champions for this issue. It's extremely valuable, but very rare, for a group of this diversity to come and spend part of the day talking about these issues. So on behalf of our partners at the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I want to thank our players again for their participation and insights today. You did an amazing job in a really difficult scenario. And I also like to thank our broader audience here in New York, as well as those participating online. And of course, our amazing center faculty and staff, and the larger Event 201 team from the Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum for putting together today's events. So please join us down the hall in the cotillion room for the luncheon, and we stand adjourned. Thank you.